I'm Anashua Sinha, and I'm a senior principal scientist here at Merck Research Labs. I trained in internal medicine, pediatrics, and infectious diseases, and I'm currently the lead clinical director for the Influenza program, and I'm super excited to be talking to you today about our phase 3 study, SMART. So before we focus on SMART specifically, I know your audience is well aware of this, but it's important to keep in mind that all infants are at risk for RSV, and the burden of RSV on infants, their families, and healthcare systems remains significant, whether those infants are healthy or at increased risk. In the SMART study specifically, we focused on infants who are at increased risk for severe RSV disease, which is to say infants who were early or moderately preterm in terms of their gestational age, and those with chronic lung disease of prematurity or congenital heart disease of any gestational age, as well as those children who remained at increased risk for severe RSV disease through their second RSV season. So to get more into your question, in terms of what pediatricians and those specialists who care for these very special infants and children should know about the study, I think there's a few key points to take away. The first one is with regards to safety. The primary endpoint in this study was regarding safety, and the safety demonstrated that the safety profile of influenza was similar to that of the comparator in the study. The comparator was palivizumab. And consistent with the safety profile of influenza that we observed in healthy infants who were enrolled in another study, the pivotal phase 2b/3 CLEVER study, which is the complement of SMART. Another key point is that for those children who needed RSV prevention when they were entering their second RSV season, that safety profile of influenza was generally consistent with the safety we observed in infants who received influenza during their first RSV season. So those are the key safety results. If we turn next to pharmacokinetics, the pharmacokinetic results, which is to say the influenza serum concentrations achieved for these infants and children in both RSV season 1 and RSV season 2, were similar to those observed in healthy infants in that phase 2b/3 CLEVER study that I mentioned a second ago. And this is important because it supports extrapolation. Another term we use is PK bridging. It supports extrapolation of clinical efficacy from that CLEVER trial to the infants and children in SMART. So to put it in a nutshell, the phase 3 SMART study results add to a growing body of evidence that pediatricians can use to support the use of influenza in infants and children under 2 years of age who remain at increased risk for severe RSV disease when they're entering either their first or their second RSV season. Focusing on palivizumab just for a second, by way of background, palivizumab has been an RSV preventative monoclonal antibody for these high-risk pediatric patients that we're talking about, and it's been in use for over 2 decades. And previously, it was regarded as a standard of care for infants and children at high risk for RSV. That's why it was the comparator in the SMART study. Palivizumab required monthly dosing, and the reality of that was adherence to any care regimen can be challenging when multiple healthcare visits are required, in this instance, for that monthly dosing. We're now in the long-acting RSV prevention epic. You know, influenza only requires a once per season prevention approach, and that means these children's care regimen can be simplified. And hopefully, adherence concerns will be lessened and more families able to easily access effective RSV prevention for these vulnerable infants and children. I think that's really an exciting evolution in the RSV prevention landscape for these high-risk children. I think influenza is an important tool in our clinical toolbox Of course, for the healthy infants, but specifically for the at-risk infants that we're talking about today. In addition to the infants, we're also looking forward to the potential of influenza to help protect these eligible children under 2 years of age who remain at high risk when they're entering that second RSV season. Before we go much further, focusing for a second on that second RSV season, I do need to mention that we are currently seeking an expanded indication for the second RSV season. And what I mean by that is that the US FDA has accepted to review our filing for an expanded indication to include these children under 2 years of age at increased risk for severe RSV, lower respiratory tract disease for the second RSV season. And they've set an estimated decision date of March 22, 2027. Similarly, the European Union's EMA has also accepted to review this application for the same population entering their second RSV season. But I do need to highlight that right now, for your pediatricians, influenza is currently approved for the prevention of RSV, lower respiratory tract disease, in infants born during or entering their first RSV season. That's our current indication. I want to be really clear about that.